Hey guys, welcome to Just About Movies podcast. I'm Elliot, that's Alex. We've got quite a special one today. This is one that's very personal to me and Alex. So we're going to be taking you through our top 10 Stephen King adaptations. So that's anything TV or film that's been adapted from a Stephen King novel or a short story, all written by Stephen King. It's important to note that we're not doing the best adaptations that translate his work perfectly and the ones that really adapt his work word for word. And this is just our personal list of films that we like and TV shows based around Stephen King's work. How are you feeling about this one, Alex?
Mate, I love that intro.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Feeling good, mate. Obviously, there's a lot of Stephen King adaptations out there that no one knows were written and by Stephen King. Like, I think the first film that we're going to go through, people will be surprised because they don't think Stephen King as soon as this title of the movie comes up.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. Like, before we even did this, just doing a little bit of research, and I think there's something like 70 of his short stories and films have been adapted. Like, he produces so much content, so they're quite sort of like hot property, especially at the moment, to sort of turn them into film or TV.
Yes, definitely. Hollywood have cashed in on his stories, haven't they, recently?
Yeah.
And there's a lot more going to come out.
Yeah, that's it. So, like, we've got so much we could have picked from. So, and because we're such big fans, we've seen a lot. We love a lot of it. So this is just our list whittled down to our favourites. Let's start off at number 10. Number 10 is, Alex?
The Running Man.
I'll be back.
Go!
The highest rated TV show in history.
See, surprising. I think a lot of people won't know that The Running Man is a Stephen King adaptation.
No.
It's I think the main reason being it wasn't written under the name Stephen King. It was written under his pseudonym, which is Richard Bachman, which a lot of his stuff is written under.
Fair play.
Yeah, and I think
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, so it's not written. It won't say Stephen King on the book, so I think that's why a lot of people don't know that it's a Stephen King adaptation. So, it's directed by Paul Michael Glazer. So he's done stuff like Fiddler on the Roof and the TV series Miami Vice, a couple of episodes of that. It's a great film, isn't it, really? I mean, I know it's one of your big favourites.
It is, mate. It's not like when you think of King, you think of horror, but it's kind of like a futuristic action film, isn't it? If people haven't seen it, it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as the main character, the big action hero.
Yeah.
He's put into a game show where he has to fight for his life to save the woman that he loves, to stop the evil game host from overtaking the world.
I mean, it's so 80s, isn't it? It's so 80s.
Yeah, it is 80s. It's got a lot of 80s cheese in it. It's the soundtrack is amazing.
The funny thing is, it's actually set between 2017 and 2019. So, like a dystopian USA. And I feel like they're probably not far off. I feel like a couple of years in America might be like that, especially the way they seem to be going. I think it's one of those films, it's a product of its time. I don't think you wouldn't ever watch it going, we need to analyse this for every shot it is. I don't think you could ever call the film sort of like beautiful for its cinematography. It's an Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s action film, isn't it? And that's sort of like, it is what it says on the tin. That's what it is. Over the top action scenes. It's cheesy one-liners and music that is well overdue a comeback. So, it's you can't read too much into the film, can you? Really?
No.
But I think it's
awesome,
important to note that Stephen King actually isn't a fan of the film. He wasn't a fan of the adaptation because it wasn't so true to his work. And he also really wasn't a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger being cast in the role. So, but that being said, it's a good film. It's a really good film. we like it, and that's sort of why it's number 10 on our list.
We like it. That's why it's number 10.
Yes. Hey, number 10 out of potential 70. So that's not bad. That's not bad. Let's move on to number 9.
Yeah.
So this one from director Mike Flanagan, and it's actually the first film on our list directed by Mike Flanagan. It's Gerald's Game, which was on Netflix. It came out in 2019.
5 hours you've wasted screaming for neighbors that are half a mile away, if they're even here yet.
How did this film make you feel, Alex?
Okay, so from what I can remember, I think I've seen it once. Really loved it though. It was really good. Didn't realise it was a Stephen King film again until like later on. So is it like a kinky relationship? That
they're trying to rejuvenate the relationship, aren't they? They're sort of gone a bit flat, and
so
and
that
he wants
revolves
to
in
sort of spice it up, doesn't he?
Yeah. So can I say spoilers?
Yeah, let's put this out now. Spoiler alert. We're going to go through some films, and we're probably going to spoil them, aren't we? So, spoiler alert right now. Let's talk about Gerald's Game. It's fucked up. It's an uneasy film.
So they're trying to revitalize their sex life, aren't they?
Yeah.
So the husband ties himself to the bed.
No, ties her to the bed.
Oh, of course he does.
Yeah,
ties her. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So
completely different film. What you're on about?
Yeah. So the husband ties his wife to the bed, and he has a heart attack.
Yeah.
And dies. And now she's stuck on the bed, and she can't.
In a house that's in the middle of nowhere. So it's bad from worse. It just gets bad. Like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, that's the crux of it, really, isn't it? Because I mean, the most of the film is in that bedroom. It's her dealing with not only the physical struggle of he's on top of her and dead, she's chained to it, but also the emotional struggle because something that Mike Flanagan does so well in everything, and that is personal demons, inner demons, as she has so many, which manifest themselves in front of her while she's in this state. I have to say I'm a massive fan of Carla, I hope I'm getting her name right, Gugino. She's amazing. I think she's amazing in everything she does. And Bruce Greenwood is amazing. And it's such an uneasy film. You sort of like, I feel like the situation that they're in isn't so unbelievable. It's like almost like, could you imagine that happening? And that's so King-esque, isn't it? It's grounded
puts
in
you
reality.
into situations that you wouldn't think would happen. Yeah,
you're so grounded in reality, but it's a bit far-fetched. But at the same time, you can almost imagine it, and I feel like this film does that quite a bit. A lot of people thought that before this film was one of Stephen King's adaptations that would never be filmable. It was something that would never be made, a bit too dark. But I don't know. I think it works on film. I think it's a great film. I think it came out at the right time because Stephen King sort of stuff is on a high at the moment, and it's dark, which is another thing that's people are big on that at the moment. It's quite a popular sort of style of film at the moment.
Yeah, so it come out around the same time as It did, I think, didn't it, in 2017?
Yeah. It was sort of in between the first parts and the second part, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, so obviously the Stephen King films were on like a boom at that point, so Gerald's Game would have appealed to a lot of people at the time.
And it's just, it's shot well. It's got it's shot like a Stephen King film, which is weird because obviously he's got no like part in the way they're shot, but it's just got a really good feel to him, and there's a character in it that is so unsettling, the sort of deformed man, and that comes with, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's some great twists in there. It's not what you think, but there is a very uneasy and squeamish scene that I can understand. That's the scene that maybe put people off wanting to film it, but I won't go into any more detail into that. Let's move on to our number 8 pick, which is Pet Sematary.
Maybe just some crazy folk tale.
Now, this is one of the classics, the King classics, isn't it? I mean, when you think of, I think anyone who knows Stephen King, or even doesn't know Stephen King that well, knows the name Pet Sematary. It's a bit like Salem's Lot and things like that.
Yeah.
It's a classic, isn't it? And the one we're specifically talking about is the 2019, I believe it was, 2019 release.
So the 2019 is a remake of the 1989 version.
Yeah.
I think the 1989 version was made for TV at the time, like most of his stuff was. So like it was made for TV. The Tommy Knockers was made for TV. So Pet Sematary come out in 1989. They remade it last year.
Yeah.
Hit the cinemas. I think it was really successful. It was really successful. Even though it was just a straight remake, there was maybe one kind of story change in the film.
Yeah, a little bit of a twist, like different to what people were used to.
So Pet Sematary is about a family that move into a new location in Maine. And Maine is like the obvious. Stephen King tends to write all of his characters and story arcs inside this fictional town called Maine.
It's his main location for everything.
And the spooky things start happening. They realise that there's like an Indian burial ground which is able to revive dead people and pets back from the grave.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's sort of where that whole thing came from, that they're buried on the Indian burial ground. That's so Stephen King, isn't it? And it's like it's one of those things. I think Pet Sematary it's almost a classic, like horror. Family moves into new house, strange things go on, and they sort of have to figure out what's up with it. It's classic, but it's done very well. You know, it's got a great atmosphere, great cast, some good performances from the young actors in there. I love seeing John Lithgow's in it. I love seeing John Lithgow in anything serious. I think he's brilliant actor. And I think it's a great atmosphere, a few twists in there. It's an all-round just good film, good horror.
Yeah, nice, mate. I think people preferred the original actually to the remake.
Do they? But that's it, isn't it? You know, I mean, the problem is with something like Stephen King's, filmography is that you've got the diehard fans. You know, you've got ones that watched the TV series when they came out, and they almost won't like anything else that's new, any new remake of it. It's sort of similar to what we're kind of like when any film gets remade nowadays. It's sort of like a little bit of a negativity around it. But I feel like this film, instead of being a remake, it's more of a sort of remaster instead.
Yeah, definitely.
They nailed it. I mean, it's directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. So two directors, and they've got a lot of history of doing some horror stuff. So they know what they're doing with it all, and I think they did a good job. Just an all-round good film, a good horror. Shall we move on to our 7th pick? Are we on?
Yes, mate. Remind me, what is the 7th pick? Is it?
So we've gone for, it's the first of 3 Frank Darabont films. It's The Mist.
I hear something.
Are those bugs?
Not like any I've ever seen. The entire front of this store is plate glass.
Yeah.
This one's an odd one because when I first watched The Mist, I didn't know it was Stephen King, and I thought it was a bit of a B movie. So I was like, it's a bit like, I used to think anything with Thomas Jane as the main character used to be a B movie. So I was sort of like, it's a bit of a B movie, but it's actually really good. And when I say it's the first of 3 films for Frank Darabont, the other 2 films, when we say what they are, I mean, they're up there with not just best Stephen King films, they're up with the best films ever. So you've got a strong director here. So it's definitely not a B movie. But it's definitely the most low profile of his films.
Yeah, so it came out in 2007, the movie did. He wanted to make it back in the 80s, but he couldn't. So yeah, he made it in 2007. They've just recently released, I think a couple of years ago, a TV version of the same film.
Couldn't get through it.
No, it wasn't.
No,
I agree with you, mate. It didn't grip me as much as the film did. So
no, it was darker. It was darker than the film, but I didn't think the characters were as, I say, likable, were as, watchable as the film is. I think the film is based around a man who, I think with his one child, they go to a supermarket, and a mist sort of transcends over the small town that they're in, and he's stuck in the supermarket with lots of people, and in the mist is monsters, all different kinds. So they're all stuck in there, and I think it's easy to say that this film is about monsters, but it's actually more about what people are driven to when they're in sort of situations like this. So it's more of a human thing, which is, once again, it's Stephen King. He builds characters and he gives them backstory. Everyone has a backstory. Everyone has personal demons. Everyone's got something going on that's affecting them, that affects the main story. And I think The Mist does that so well because they're all so crammed together. And it's a brilliant film for seeing what people can be pushed to, I think.
Yes, mate. That was awesome again.
Yeah. I think... Thanks. I think Frank Darabont, he changed the ending from the novel, and it's something that Stephen King commended him for, because
he did, mate. Yeah, so King is very critical when his films get adapted, and he has a say in most of his adaptations. Like, people go to him before they make changes and stuff. But yeah, King praised. So Frank Darabont changed the ending from the book in the movie, and King really liked it, and it was critically acclaimed as one of the most shocking endings ever, wasn't it?
100%. I mean, I would almost say watch the film just for the ending. And when we say,
should we ruin it for people?
I don't think we can.
Should we say what happens?
Because it's so shocking. I feel like you want to experience that for the first time if you've not seen it. But I feel like when we say ending, we're not even talking like last 20 minutes. We're literally talking the last 3 minutes. Just make you go, oh, there's no words for it. And you can, I almost feel like Stephen King saw it and went, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? Because it's so dark. And I imagine he just he must have, because he obviously loved it. But
if you haven't seen The Mist, go see The Mist just for that ending.
100%. I would say see it for the ending, and it's a great film all round. It's good. You have to get past the CGI a little bit. It's a little bit low budget. This is why I thought it was a B movie. It is a little bit, especially now. I wouldn't say it's aged particularly well, but I think the story's good enough that you can get past the CGI in it. I think it's still just a great film. Number 6. Oh, Alex is excited to talk about this one. I'll let you introduce this one, mate. Number 6.
So I guess you mean Dr. Sleep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the second Mike Flanagan film. Tell us about...
So Dr. Sleep come out last year, directed by Mike Flanagan. He's obviously another fan of Stephen King. So Dr. Sleep is the sequel to The Shining, the 1980 movie The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a fan of Dr. Sleep, are you?
I am. I feel like you hyped it up quite a bit. And I felt like it didn't quite...
It was, mate. It was the best film I seen last year.
Fair enough. No, that's cool. That's fair enough. But I just thought, because you got me on that, oh yeah, Dr. Sleep, here we go, and we were real big on it. I went into it and I was like, oh, it's good, but I didn't think it was amazing. I have to admit, I was a bit I actually didn't like the thought of Ewan McGregor playing Danny. I didn't like the thought of it, but he did actually play it really well. So I did go into it a little bit negative because I thought I just can't see him playing it. He's an amazing actor, and I love Ewan McGregor, but that role of Danny, I couldn't see him doing it, but he did do it really well, and you know, I sort of commend him for that. Yeah, you're right. I wasn't crazy about the film. I feel like my favourite parts to it really were any link that it had to The Shining, because I think he nailed that. Like any part where, okay, this is a big spoiler, you know, the part when they went back to the Overlook Hotel, that for me, that sequence was exciting. That's what I wanted to see. That, you know, that for me was scary, and because of what it is, that is so iconic seeing that, and I think Mike Flanagan handled that really well. So that for me was my the sort of the shining part of Doctor Sleep. But I know you do
the
love
shining part of Doctor Sleep.
Did I say that? Did I
love that. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
It's all in here. No, I meant to say that.
Yeah, so if people haven't seen Doctor Sleep, it takes place 30 years after The Shining. Danny, the little boy from The Shining, has now grown up, but he's struggling to cope with what happened to him when he was younger, which happened in The Shining. And then his psychic abilities have kind of been suppressed. He doesn't use the shine as much as he did when he was a kid. But then in Doctor Sleep, there you find out that there's people out there that eat the shining, that eat people's psychic powers, and he teams up with Rebecca Ferguson. She plays the big bad in The Shining, in Doctor Sleep. Sorry, and she's awesome in that.
She is. She's an incredible actress. Anything she's doing at the moment, she's nailing it, and she was a really good role in that. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, people might know her from The Greatest Showman. She plays. Oh, what's her name in The Greatest Showman?
Don't try and figure it out.
Lind? Is it?
Oh, Jenny Lind.
Jenny Lind, that's the one.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I'm amazed you got that. I never thought we'd get that.
Oh my God, I hope people got that reference in. You're just coming out with them tonight.
I didn't want to sing that. I didn't want to sing it too loud. Like.
But yeah, so Doctor Sleep, and then the film does take us back to the Overlook Hotel in the end, and it's the best. It's one of the best moments of the whole film. So it's good to go back to the Overlook.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's such an iconic location in film in general that I feel like when it went back there, it had to get it right. It just had to, because you can mess up. The only other film that's done it right is Ready Player One. That scene where they go to the Overlook Hotel, they nail it, and I think both films have absolutely crushed it because it's so good. It's a really good scene, and I did enjoy that. Yeah. Before we move on, I want to shout out to Cliff Curtis, who's in that film as well, because he has quite a fairly small role. I think he plays Danny's friend in it, but that he's class. I always like seeing him in any film. He was in Once Were Warriors, and that's one of the films that got me into film and liking film and loving film the way I do. So Cliff Curtis, great in that film as well. Deserves a mention.
People might know him from Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he plays the father in Fear the Walking Dead.
He's done a lot of stuff, but I just always remember him from Once Were Warriors, the New Zealand film, with Tamara Morrison in it, and I just remember thinking like he was class, and that's sort of one of my early experiences with film. So like I think he deserves a shout out. Him and Rebecca Ferguson, phenomenal. Let's go on to we're into our top 5 now. So I think it's definitely easy to say that these are not just top 5 adaptations. These are some great films and TV series. In at number 5, we have, for me, what would have been my number 1 on this list in general, because it's up there with one of my favourite films of all time, and it's Stand By Me. which was directed by Rob Reiner, who's sort of famous for doing stuff like This Is Spinal Tap, Misery, which is another Stephen King adaptation. There's so much to say about it. I love this film. I think it's absolutely beautiful as a film. If you haven't seen it, it's a story of friends looking for a body. They're four friends, and they've heard of a dead body, and they want to go and look for it. It sounds a bit morbid, but it's probably one of the most incredible coming of age stories. It's just it's amazing, and they go on this little journey, and it's all about their trip to finding the body. Yeah, it is an amazing film. What about yourself, Alex? Do you remember?
Yes, mate. It's very Stephen King. He tends to write. He likes to write about coming of age, youth, growing up in your teens. So you see that a lot with It as well. It's about the children, and Stand By Me. It's about the children growing up. Dreamcatcher's the same.
It is literally perfect casting. It's got some amazing young actors in it. I mean, led by River Phoenix.
Of course, yeah.
He's just
passed away, didn't he?
He's just phenomenal in the film. He's so good, and I think it's so well shot. And the story is, like you said, it's so Stephen King. It's characters going on a journey, doing something, but just having their own personal stuff. But obviously, we're following children, and this is something that, you know, they don't feel like children at times. They have almost adult problems. You know, they've got insecurities, and they're worried about the future and stuff. And it's not about the body. It's not about them going to find the body. It's about them sort of finding themselves and you know, learning to sort of accept themselves. And it is just brilliant. I mean, it's so like charming, and that is set in Maine again. And I tell you what, it's the sort of film that actually makes me want to go to Maine and want to go to that sort of thing, because I just want to sort of see those places, and it's just, there's so much to it. It's relatable as well. Although I feel, you know, I didn't go through what the kids in the film went through. Like, there's a part of me that almost feels like I did, and there's a part of me that feels like I had those same sort of insecurities and the same problems. It's a fantastic film. I did find out that Rayner actually tried to find, when he was casting it, he tried to find actors that actually more embodied their character in real life rather than had to act. So it's what made them so believable. And I think when you watch it and you see the performances from them, you know, they don't seem like they're acting. They do seem like they're having genuine conversations. You almost feel like you're watching some sort of obscure documentary. But it's just a great film. I think if you looked at any sort of top 100 films of all time, this is going to be way up there. And I think if you haven't seen it, just get out there and watch it. It's a great film. It's amazing.
Nice, mate. Love that passion about the film.
Yeah,
forgive
one
me,
of those
I've only
ones.
seen it. I've actually only seen it like once.
Really?
And I can't talk about it as much as in depth with you, but I'm gonna have to watch it again after that powerful speech. So
yeah, good. That's what we hope for. You know, it's I actually think it's next to me somewhere here. I've got like a stack of DVDs, and I think it's in one of them. I just love it. It's an amazing film. Let's move on to our four. Go on, mate. What was that?
No, I'm sorry for that. I kind of remember. I always remember the ending, because I remember. I think it was the main character. He's writing like a personal statement about how he felt. After it finished, I remember him saying something like he's ashamed that his friends aren't connected. He's not connected with his friends as he's grown up.
So once again,
that was.
Yeah,
of course, yeah. So that's the thing that King does great, because when people transcend from childhood to adolescence, he kind of always refers to it as people lose contact with each other. So, and he likes to get that into his story. So at the end of Stand By Me, I remember the main character saying that he's a bit gutted that he's not in contact with his friends no more.
Yeah.
And I think we can all relate to that because, you know,
Definitely.
as we get older, we lose contact with our best friends who we probably spent the most important times of our lives with.
Mm.
And
It's another case of that relatable experience in an unrealistic kind of environment again. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like you get it, you just get what's going on, and you really feel it on the personal level. And I think it takes a director, you know, like Rob Reiner, to sort of do that and make you feel that and shoot it in a way that sort of makes it relatable. But you're right, at the end of it, I think the main character actually says, after the events of the film, so after they find the body and that, they actually lose contact and they don't speak to each other again, almost literally straight after. And they say they go their own way. And I think one of them ends up in prison, one of them dies, one of them like is like almost nothing. That's it. The River Phoenix's character, big spoiler alert. He says that he got in two people were fighting and he tried to break it up and he ended up getting shot and passed away. So, you know, it, like, you're right. It is like you lose contact, but it's all told right at the end. They just all went their own separate ways, and it's amazing because when you think about how much they bonded throughout the film, it's quite an odd sort of way to end it, because, you know, it's almost not happy, which personally I'm a fan of endings that aren't happy. I feel that they're a little bit more real.
Yes, mate, that's true. And he does exactly the same thing in It, which we'll obviously talk about later.
Will we? Ooh. Let's go on to our fourth pick, which is our second Frank Darabont film. It's The Green Mile.
John Coffey is a murderer.
I don't think he did it at all.
Take my hand, boss. You see for yourself.
Seen The Green Mile?
I have, mate.
Of course.
Yeah, I hope everybody has seen The Green Mile. That's a
You'd like to think, wouldn't you? It's one of those ones. It's got to be. Yeah. It's got to be on a lot of people's pens.
Again, people wouldn't think it's a Stephen King book.
No, they wouldn't. It's I think it's got the Stephen King feel, but it's one of those ones. Yeah, I don't think it's. I actually have the book. It's fantastic, and the film is fantastic as well, isn't it? I mean, like we said, it is one of the highest rated films. Do you want to talk us through it? What sort of happens in The Green Mile?
Oh, okay. So, does it take place in the 30s?
I actually don't know the era it takes place in. Ooh. I think it is 30s, isn't it? Because I think they talk about, I think it's post-war, post World War One, but I'm not sure. It's set once again in sort of New England, America. It's basically based around Tom Hanks, a prison warden, on a cell block that's known as the Green Mile, because it's a long walk of green flooring, and it's a cell block of people that are sentenced to death.
Yeah, so, about to be executed.
Yeah, so
about to be given the chair.
That's their holding place before they're sentenced to death. And it's pretty standard, really. It's, you know, 3 wardens there, but then the actor Michael Clark Duncan comes in as one of the prisoners, and he is different, isn't he? He's a big man, very big man.
Yeah, so he's wrongly accused of murdering and raping 2 young girls.
Yeah.
So the whole film is basically Tom Hanks discovering that Michael Clark Duncan is actually innocent, and the wrong man has been framed, but they still, because of the political and judgmental process back then, they still had to execute him to death, didn't they?
It's important to note that, you know, he was a black man. He was a helper on a farm, and he was found with the bodies of the girls. So all the evidence pointed to him being the killer and rapist. So, but obviously it takes a turn. it's
there's
obvious,
always a twist.
It's obvious pretty much most of the way through that he isn't this evil killer. There are some incredible performances in this film, notably Michael Clarke Duncan, who plays John Coffey, and I mean, it was Oscar nominated for Best Supporting Role. He lost out to Michael Caine. I did look at the films for that year. It was a very tough year, but he rightly so was nominated for the Oscar. He is so good in the role. But for me, the role that's really stuck out to me, and it actually made me follow his career just from the role, it was actually Wild Bill in the film. So Wild Bill is played by Sam Rockwell, who who's a bit of a nutcase, to say the least. And it was actually literally just from his performance, it's so powerful. I ended up just every time Sam Rockwell was in the film, I wanted to see it. And, you know, he ended up winning an Oscar Best Supporting Role for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which he's phenomenal in. So there's some really good performances in this film. The story is incredible. I feel like it's got to be a bucket list film. So it's films you have to see, and if you haven't seen it, you need to tick it off your bucket list. And if you have seen it, you're probably going to watch it again and again and a few times because it's just a brilliant film, isn't it?
Yes, mate, correct. Hopefully everyone's seen it.
Yeah. So we're in top 3 now. So these 3 films, these 3 things that we've picked, they're pretty big deals. The next one, I imagine, is on the top of some people's all-time favourite lists for films, for horror. So this film is The Shining.
Here's Johnny.
Directed, a bit like what Alex is doing now, shining on his screen. It is directed by Stanley Kubrick. It came out in 1980. I think the first thing we should say is Stephen King absolutely hates this film. But most people like it because it's a good film. So it's based on the Stephen King novel of the same name, The Shining, but it's very loose with the source material. Stanley Kubrick took his own way. We'll go into it a little bit more in a bit. But Alex, talk us through what The Shining is, what the film The Shining is.
Yes, so The Shining is about Jack Nicholson. He plays Johnny.
Yeah,
Jack Torrance. Johnny Torrance. He takes his family to the Overlook Hotel, which is this big mountainside hotel, and he's tasked with looking after it for like 6 months, the whole winter
season. Yeah,
so the whole winter season that the hotel is closed for, he has become the caretaker. And he moves his young son Danny and his wife Wendy into the hotel, and when he gets there, you start to realise that he's kind of losing his mind.
Mm-hmm.
But is this because he is going crazy, or is this because the hotel is actually haunted? Which is quite ambiguous. The whole film is quite ambiguous. You don't know if he's actually losing his mind or the hotel is actually haunted.
I mean, you could argue that right up until the end, even at the end, you still don't know, because it genuinely could just be him transcending into a bit of madness. But so
in the book, like you said, the hotel was haunted,
mm-hmm.
and there are ghosts, and the shining, the ability to shine, is much more prominent in the books than it is in the film.
Mm-hmm. So a bit like Dr. Sleep, Danny is a young lad in it, and he discovers he has the shining through a man, I can't remember his name now. I can't remember his name, but he finds out he has the shining. He can talk in his head with somebody else who works at the Overlook, but that man leaves, and it's just the Torrance family in the Overlook Hotel. And I mean, this from the get-go, this is a suspenseful film. You know, the music is so powerful in the opening sequence, and it just opens with so much presence, doesn't it? It's an impactful film. I think if you know Stanley Kubrick, who's done A Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket, Barry Lyndon, you know, he's very particular with his films. Everything is done for a reason. So, yeah, it's one of those things. There's a lot of theories about this film, isn't there?
Should we go into some of the theories?
Yeah, let's do it. So one
Yeah.
if you've seen The Shining and you think, oh yeah, cool, great film, watch Room 237, which is a documentary about The Shining, and that will change. It won't change your mind. It will still make you think it's a great film, but it will really make you doubt what you've watched, and
correct.
even potentially. I mean, at one point, I started sort of doubting whether the moon landings were real. So, but the only way to explain it is you've got to watch the documentary. It's a very good documentary. How much you want to read into it, that's up to you. But
yeah, shall I give an example of what happened?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so obviously Stanley Kubrick, he made a 2001 Space Odyssey before The Shining, and he's kind of hailed as one of the best directors since Alfred Hitchcock. He's the way he takes every single shot and every set piece is thought about before he hits record on the camera. Basically, he thinks about every kind of small little detail. And
so
if
I was in a shot now, and this was Stanley Kubrick, the curtains would be a certain pattern to mean something. The cushions would be placed in a position that would mean something. There'd be a picture on the wall that had some sort of deeper meaning. I would be positioned in a way that meant something. My hat colour would mean something. Everything he does has a meaning. Yeah.
And one of those, for example, if before you go see the documentary and the film, he changed. There's a famous scene in The Shining where a ghost is discovered in one of the rooms, and the room is room 237, which is also the name of the documentary. But in the book, it was room 217. Yeah. So he purposely changed that for no reason whatsoever, but there is a reason. Apparently, the reason that he said it is because the location where they shot didn't have a room 217. So because of tourism, they didn't want, because of the horror film coming out, they was afraid that people wouldn't stay in that room just in case the film was so scary. So the room number had to be changed, didn't it?
Yeah, because it's based on a real location. It's a real hotel. So Stephen King wrote the novel, and they basically didn't want the room to be sort of like too much tourism about it and sort of spoil the hotel, because it's quite a horrible scene that happens in the room. So he changed it. He changed the number to 237. But what's the truth? The truth is actually that.
So the number 237, bearing in mind he filmed 2001 Space Odyssey where Apollo 11 travels to the moon, the conspiracy theory is that Stanley Kubrick had some sort of influence with the first moon landing. But he wasn't allowed to
he wasn't allowed to talk about it.
He wasn't allowed to talk about, basically, the moon landings were faked. And Stanley Kubrick played a part in faking the moon landings.
And filming the faked versions.
Yeah, correct. With his knowledge from the film 2001 Space Odyssey. So he hid secret messages in his films that he made, for example, The Shining, where he changed, simple as he changed the room from 217 to 237. And the number is important because 237 is the same distance that the moon is away from the Earth, 237,000
miles.
237,000 miles.
is to the moon, and he's changed to that. So I think that's what the crux of everything is. They think that he made The Shining, and he changed all of Stephen King's ideas to hint that the moon landings were faked. And I think watch the film first, then watch Room 237, then watch the film again, and just get so frustrated because there's so much in it that just makes you go, oh, why did he do that? But it's such a good film. It's so well shot. It's got scenes in it that are so iconic. They're such iconic film scenes. I mean, the two girls standing in the hallway. I mean, even if you've never seen The Shining, you know that image. Everyone knows that image because it's so ingrained in us. It's so iconic, and I think that's what The Shining is. It's an icon of film, and it's something that, just go out there and watch it. It is a bit of a strange watch, and it is a bit of a hard watch at times, but I think it's worth it. It's worth it to watch it, isn't it? And I think I actually think we should do another podcast about the conspiracy theories around Stanley Kubrick's involvement with the moon landings. I think we should do a podcast on that. You, me, and Alex will dive into it, mate. But we won't do it now.
I can't because I'll just get involved again. And I'll think that the moon landings were faked, and I'll start believing in aliens again.
Cool. So that brings us on to our number 2, which is probably I would say it's on most people's top film of all time list. It's our 3rd film by Frank Darabont, and it's The Shawshank Redemption.
Damn it, new friend, you're putting me behind.
Hope can drive a man insane.
You better be sick or dead in there, I kid you not.
Better get used to that idea.
Which is, once again, it's probably something that people don't realise is a Stephen King adaptation. But it is, and it's phenomenal. It's Shawshank Redemption, isn't it?
Yes, mate. I was actually quite late to watching Shawshank Redemption. I think I only seen it. It must have been about 5 years ago. I was so late to watching it. Like, I've always heard about it. It was one about, really talked about among you and other friends and stuff. But I only watched it about 5 years ago, and it instantly became one of the best films I've seen ever. And it is one of the best films ever. It's got the best rating, the best, it's everything in a movie that you could want. It's so good.
I watched it, I think, 2 weeks ago, and it's a good film, but I sort of sat down and went, "This is so good." It's just so. I mean, we love film. We love camera work and performances and color and just everything about a film, and this just nails it. It's just so good. I mean, it's a story of human triumph, and I think it's like a roller. It's a bit of a crappy phrase, but it's a roller coaster of emotions, isn't it? Because you're a bit with Morgan Freeman at the beginning, and you don't really like Andy Dufresne, but then you grow to love him, and you grow to love the group, and then they go through some hard times, and it's not great, and then it's great again, and then there's so much about it, and you laugh through it, and you could cry all the time, and it's such a powerful film, and I think it's obvious why it's often regarded as one of the greatest films of all time. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, mate. I don't think a lot of people know this, but it's also one of the films that has been put into the film archives. So only the best of the best films actually are put into the film archives, where they're preserved for future generations.
Yeah.
The film is kept in pristine order, so it's and The Shawshank Redemption was put in those archives. So even by that note, it's in there for a reason, and it's because it's so good. Do you want to talk about what the plot? Do you want to go into what it's about?
It's Andy Dufresne, who is a banker, and he finds out his wife is cheating on him for Marty McFly's dad. No, he finds out his wife is cheating on him. He goes to kill her, and him, and doesn't. But really like the most sort of like coincidental thing ever is they actually do get killed that night, and obviously he's the main suspect, so he goes to prison, and he goes to Shawshank Prison, and you know, one of the main phrases throughout the film is he's the only innocent man in Shawshank, and he makes friends with Morgan Freeman and a group of friends, and it's about their time in prison, and I think it spans over 40 years or 50 years. I think it spans of their time in prison, and you know, it goes through everything. His first couple of days, how bad they were. It goes through you know, his first year and him getting tormented by another group of men there, to working his way up to working for the warden, you know, and doing the warden's banking stuff. And I'll say spoiler alert again, but you know, he sort of finds out that the warden's being a bit dodgy with money, and he plots his escape. And I mean, all the way through the film, Andy Dufresne he's asked for a rock hammer, and you think it's to make little chess pieces in his cell, and it just builds to you know, one of probably the greatest prison escape in any film ever, and it's just beautiful. It's amazing. It's just such a beautiful story, and I would say it's Morgan Freeman's best performance. I'm not actually a massive Tim, can't remember his name now. Tim Robbins fan, but he plays the role so well. It's just brilliant. It's the whole story is amazing.
So it was actually they say it was actually a love story in the end, wasn't it?
Oh really?
It's not like an escape film or a prison film. It's kind of similar to The Green Mile, isn't it? The whole film's similar to The Green Mile.
Mm-hmm. It's shot same style and everything.
Same director, sorry, again, isn't it? But yeah, in the end, it's actually like it's a love story about the friendship that he formed with Morgan Freeman, and
with Red,
because they meet at the end, don't they?
Mm-hmm. And it actually has one of my favourite scenes in any film ever, and that's the scene with Brooks, where he's been in Shawshank Prison for, I think it's 60 years, and he gets released. He's a very old man, and it's just about him struggling to integrate back into life. You know, when he first went into prison, he said he saw one car before he went to prison, and then he's released and they're flying everywhere, and he doesn't know how to get, and he can't cope with the outside world. And I think we're going back to the whole Stephen King dealing with reality again and real things, because you know, people that have been in prison that long now are going to come out of prison and they're going to struggle because the world changes around them and they don't change in prison. And I think it's such a powerful scene, and it is one of the most sort of heartbreaking scenes I think that you could ever watch. And it's just a fantastic piece of film, and we're sitting here almost swooning over it because it's so good, and there's not much more you can say about it. It's just incredible, and if you haven't seen it yet, what the hell have you been doing? like you need to watch it. And if you're studying film and you love film, this should be on the top of your list. Right? It's that good. But it's not on the top of our list, is it?
No, mate.
Because like we said, this isn't a list about what are the best films and TV series adapted from Stephen King. These are our favourite adaptations. And although Shawshank Redemption is a masterpiece, and I think even you, Alex, would probably give it 5-star. Is it going to get a 5-star from you?
Yes, mate. Shawshank is the only film I'd give 5 out of 5 to.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But our number one on the list, I think, Alex, you should introduce this one as the Northampton Clown, as the person who showed me this film. What is our favourite Stephen King adaptation?
So it's got to be It, the miniseries.
Big white guy, red nose, about 75 feet tall.
mouth full of razor-sharp teeth.
The It miniseries, that is our number one, isn't it? It was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. I've got a fact here as well about Tommy Lee Wallace, and I hope you don't know it. I was hoping to surprise you with it. So, Tommy Lee Wallace directed Halloween 3, and he directed a TV show called The Twilight Zone.
Halloween 3?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the one that nobody liked, and it wasn't linked to the Halloween movies in any way.
That's fine. My fact actually is, in the first original Halloween film, Tommy Lee Wallace actually plays Mike Myers. Did you know that?
No, he doesn't.
He does. He's listed as playing. That's his role in
Does
the
he?
first Halloween film.
Mate.
So
Fair play, I did not know that.
I thought that'd be a fact that you quite like, unless my sources are wrong, in which he didn't. So,
mate, a quick one actually. I've got a fact about Frank Darabont that you might not have known.
Go for it.
He was the executive producer on season 1 of The Walking Dead.
Was he? No, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
And he also co-wrote A Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
That's cool. That's Dream Warriors, isn't it?
Yeah, so that was his first kind of screenwriting debut, and it was Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And that was probably one of the best Nightmare on Elm Street films.
Yeah. I mean, that guy, he's got his name on some big stuff, hasn't he? Like, he's like, for somebody who doesn't do a lot, the stuff he does do is gold. Do you know what I mean? It's like the best.
Yeah.
Right, come on, let's get into the It miniseries.
Yeah.
We'll talk about everything else. Tommy Lee Wallace directed it. It was originally a miniseries on TV. I've only ever seen it as a film. So,
Same.
You know, I've seen it all put together. So I've never seen it in series form, but you can sort of work out where the cuts would be. The reason why part 1 and part 2 didn't work is because Stephen King's It is about friendship and children having an amazing friendship that overcomes evil. And something that the It miniseries does so well is gives you time with the children, gives you time with the adults when they're grown up, and gives you time to love them and love the friendship that they have. And I mean, it's just class. And I think, you know, the miniseries just nails that friendship for me. It's my favourite part of the film.
Yes, mate. So with something that the miniseries did so well that the new films didn't, you fall in love with all the young characters.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, you do enjoy the characters in the remake.
Yeah.
But, the miniseries is just it works so much better, doesn't it? Even though it's way before our time. There's no CGI in it. There's no it's not jump scare focused and stuff.
No.
You really fall for each character. It also captures Derry, the city, really well. Because
really well.
in the book, Derry is kind of like a character in itself because Pennywise controls Derry. He manipulates all the adults.
Yeah.
The miniseries did that so good, and you kind of believe in there's something not quite right with this town.
Yeah. And I think it translates from when they're children to adults. There's the town isn't right, and I think that, and it's so special because, you know, you're with the children, sort of almost wanting to shout at the adults, going, "Can't you see what's wrong with the town right now?" And it's sort of frustrating, but you know, it's exciting at the same time. And I think the fact that, because it was a series, is it's slower. There's a slower pace to it. I think the first 3 or 4 episodes that they must have been, it's obviously the first sort of hour of the film, is just getting to know the characters. It's literally this character as they're older, this character as they're younger, and their first experience with it. And it just goes through all 7 of them, and that's it. So you're just learning the characters and you're learning the group, and then they all come together, you know, sort of midway through the film. But it gives you because it gives you so much time with them, you end up falling in love with them. You know, you care about all of them. Whereas in part 1 and 2, I didn't care about Mike because he was in it for about 15 minutes. I didn't care about Ben because his older person who played him, I think, said 4 words. So I don't care about them. But in the mini-series, we learn about what they're doing in the future, and it's also set in the 50s and the 80s, which is where the book is set as well, as opposed to 80s and then present time, which the films tried to do. And there's something that doesn't work right with that. The mini-series is scary in that sense, where the 50s scenes are quite scary, I think. And the whole point is that Pennywise manifests himself as the classic scary things of that time. The werewolf, a vampire, a zombie, all those sort of things. So it works better that way, I think, as the miniseries does.
Yes, mate, 100% agree with everything you said. Again, it's like, because you're a big fan of Stand By Me, kind of it is a development of Stand By Me, but with like a killer clown in the mix. Stand By Me is so similar to it in terms of the characters and the child actors and the coming of age kind of story.
Yeah.
But then you, with a killer clown thrown into the mix of it.
And what a killer clown that you get in the miniseries. I mean, Tim
Yeah,
Curry.
so the main star of the show was Tim Curry.
100%.
He's not in it a lot because, again, like you said, it's about the characters and the character development. But Tim Curry's ever present within the miniseries. Yeah, he's always there. He's always watching.
You're never allowed to forget him, which is nice, because the dam building scene is lovely. It's like them building a dam together. That's probably the biggest bonding session that they have in the miniseries, but it's quickly forgotten when they're told that there's a curfew and they need to remember there's a curfew. So you get drawn into these characters and you really enjoy what they're doing, riding their bike and doing all this, but then you're drawn back in because there is children being killed everywhere. Betty Ripson, Patrick Hotsair and all that. There's people dying. But and Tim Curry just does, I mean, I would say it's his best role. I think he absolutely nails it. He manages to be sort of scary and funny. So if you're afraid of clowns, you're going to find him scary. That's a given. That opening scene will scare you. You probably won't make it any further than that. The washing line, you know what I mean? The washing line spinning. And
that's the opening 5 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you're afraid of clowns, you're not going to make it past that bit. But
mate, I was always scared of that. When I first watched that film, you see him in the washing line.
So freaky.
He's just looking at... Okay, here's the thing with the techniques of that film. Every time you see Pennywise, he always looks at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So he's looking at you as an audience, which was a really clever technique. I don't know if you noticed that, but every time Pennywise pops up, he's always looking at you.
I didn't actually realise that. That's really cool.
Okay.
I like that.
So if you can imagine it, when he's in the washing line, he's looking at you.
Yeah.
When he pops up in the shower scene and comes out the shower, he's looking at you.
It's always directly to the camera. That's really cool.
When he's digging the graves, he's looking at you.
Yeah. That's really cool. I didn't realise that.
No, it is clever, but that's only when he's on his own. He's not with... So when he's with the children, for example, he's not always looking at the camera. But in the first couple of hours of the movie, he's always looking at you. So that's why, without thinking about it, people found him more scary, because he was...
Yeah,
it was kind of visceral kind of thing.
Never talking off camera. He was looking down the lens, and
yeah,
that's brilliant. I didn't realise that. That's going to make me want to watch it again, just to sort of see all that. I think it's important to say that this came out in a time. So it's come out in 1990. It actually came out in a time where Stephen King adaptations were bombing in the cinema big time. A lot of films came out that didn't do well. So The Dark Half, there's quite a few. There's a lot of films, because he really became hot property 80s, 90s, especially when The Shining did so well. And his films just weren't doing well. His adaptations were bad. And this ended up on a station called ABC in America. And nobody really wanted to pick it up, but they picked it up, and it actually became their biggest success in 1990 as a TV series. It was the most watched thing on their channel. And bearing in mind, at the time, there was a big debate, political debate. So a lot of the episodes were actually being cut halfway through and cutting to a debate with the president. And people still came back and wanted to watch it. And I think that's a testament to it as well. You know, the fact that it can come out in a time where horror TV isn't doing well, Stephen King adaptations aren't doing well. There's a massive political, I don't know what the political thing was. I think it was something to do with going to war, and the president was making decisions. So they kept going to live broadcasts of him. So they actually kept cutting the episodes midway through. So you weren't even seeing the full story, but people still wanted to watch more. And I think that's a real testament to the series itself. I think it's fair to say it's not the best acted thing you'll ever see. There's moments that are a bit cheesy, TV cheesy. And I think that, like we said, there's no CGI. There's it's all sort of stop motion models, sort of things like that. So it's dated now, and I think people might struggle. But I think if you can see past that, and you can see what the story is and how good the story is, all of that sort of doesn't matter. But I know people do have a problem with, you know, watching something old now, something that potentially hasn't aged very well. What would you say about that? Do you reckon?
Yes, mate, I agree. It's definitely a classic, but I still think people, there's still a lot of fans of it out there. I think a lot of people prefer it than the remake. I think.
Yeah.
I hoped it wouldn't be the case. What?
And they all float.
I hope they wouldn't prefer it to the new ones, but the new ones were a bit of a letdown.
It's funny, they you know, with the you know, the introduction to sort of CGI and stuff like that, I think where it potentially lost most people was actually its overuse in CGI. So I say make Stephen King's It a TV series again, focus on practical effects as well as CGI, and really dive into the book, because there is so much that the miniseries and the films haven't touched on, and there's some stuff that will probably never be touched on. It's quite dark, but there's a lot that there's so many characters and people to sort of learn about. So I think it's definitely something. I think the miniseries is such a great way of learning these characters and liking these characters and just enjoying the story that is it. I think it's a really enjoyable, thing to watch. And as much as it is a horror, I think it's more a testament to the strength of sort of friendship and people. And I think it's once again, Stephen King just gives you a story that you can relate to, and it's just fantastic.
Yes, mate. The new It did do that quite well. The ending of chapter 2 was very. It did summarise the kind of coming of age thing really well. It was very kind of Stand By Me-esque.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree with you. It is still crying out for an amazing adaptation.
Yeah.
It needs to obviously you've got the success of the Stranger Things, which is similar to it again. The creators of the Stranger Things are massive fans of Stephen King's It, aren't they?
Yeah.
They
wanted to make it.
They wanted to make it, but they give it to Andy Muschietti instead. Yeah. So they decided to do Stranger Things, which is like an amazing achievement as well.
Yeah.
But again, it's still crying out for an adaptation. The Lovecraft Country creator. The Lovecraft Country is like a supernatural series in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
The creator of that, Misha Green, says she would love to do a 7-season It adaptation. Can you imagine it being 7 seasons?
I actually can't, I mean, it depends what we're talking. Are we talking long episodes and less of the episodes, or are we talking a lot of short episodes? Because I feel like there is content there for that, but I personally think a solid 3-season, you can get enough for 3 seasons. I think you could do first season kids, second season half of the adult stuff, and third season end it off on that. But I think what we're basically saying is Stephen King, if you're watching this, me and Alex would make the best TV series adaptation of it.
We would love to adapt it.
Yeah, so get this video to Stephen King, and we'll make it. I'll direct. Alex for cinematography. We'll absolutely nail it. Knock it out of the park. Okay. No, so I think just quickly, I want to throw in some honourable mentions to some stuff we didn't talk about. I'll just put a few films out there that I know people might be a bit like, "Oh, that should be on there." So we did really consider Carrie, the 1976 version, because it's a classic. It's another one of his popular films, popular books, isn't it? But we personally, we didn't feel it was right for our list, did we? I absolutely love Dreamcatcher. I love the book and I love the film. Alex isn't a big fan of the film, so that didn't make the list. We had Cell was a potential one that we were thinking of as well. But once again, we like it, but we didn't feel it would break the top 10. Then there was 11, 22, 63, which I haven't seen personally myself. I know you have, Alex. You're a big fan of that. But I think because I hadn't seen it, we kind of didn't put it on our list. And Children of the Corn, which is something that I know Alex loves. I haven't seen for a long time, and that was kind of why I didn't make it on the top 10. But so that's our top 10 for you guys. 10, Running Man, Gerald's Game, Pet Sematary, The Mist, Doctor Sleep, Stand By Me, The Green Mile, The Shining, The Shawshank Redemption, and the It mini series. Oh, we got there, didn't we, mate?
Cracking list, though.
Yeah, I think so. Let's go watch it all back to back. Yeah. No, I think it's a good list, and I mean, he doesn't look like he's slowing down on writing more stuff. So I can imagine we're going to see a lot more adaptations, a lot more films and TV series based on his work.
Yes, mate. So I think James Wan, the director of the Insidious and the Conjuring films, he's been penned to readapt the Tommyknockers,
which is
coming out in a couple of years. Yeah, that was a Stephen King TV film.
Yeah.
And Mike Flanagan has been penned to adapt another one as well. I think it was called Revival.
Yeah.
So, Mike Flanagan, Frank Darabont, James Wan, they're top directors. I think we're safe in those kind of hands to create a new Stephen
Mike
King adaptation.
Mike Flanagan and James Wan certainly at the moment absolutely owning the horror film and TV circuit. So, I look forward to it. I look forward to many more years of Stephen King things, and when we finally make our It mini-series, just you and me, our 5-season It series, then we'll be able to put that on top of our list. So I guess it's time to say goodbye. Thanks for listening. If you made it all the way through, I know this has been quite an in-depth talk, this one. Thank you so much for watching. Tell us what your films are. What's your favourite Stephen King adaptation? Leave it in the comments below. Share, subscribe, leave a like, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening, guys.